Tonight, a possible breakthrough in the Natalee Holloway case. A California judge has ordered the Kelpo brothers to turn over documents and emails that the judge says are relevant to the most fundamental issues in this case. John Q. Kelly is an attorney for Natalee Holloway's parents. He joins us in New York. John, you were part of this lawsuit originally, but your client got bounced out of it. But tell me, what is the order that this judge has issued, and why is it significant?
Well, the key issue is whether the Kelpos had to turn over all the documents in their possession, including all their email correspondence between them and Joran van der Sloot or any other third parties during a certain period of time, after Natalee's disappearance. And we're hoping that it would shed some light on Natalee's disappearance and the Kelpos' involvement with it, and think of it if they're kind enough to turn it all over.
You say shed some light. Is it fair to say this might be a bombshell in this case?
Well, depending on what's in the records they have right now, I know for a fact that the former prosecutor, Karen Jansen, had diligently turned over all the prosecution file up to a certain point to the Kelpos and Mr. van der Sloot as the investigation was going on. And I think having those seen the light of day and Dr. Phil's attorneys having these two question the Kelpos on them when taking their deposition would be rather, powerful, to say the least.
These emails and documents have never been in the possession of you or your client, Dave and Beth. Is that right?
Some of them may have been, Greta. I've seen some of the prosecution file. I've seen a lot of the police reports and things, but obviously there's a lot out there that we have not seen yet, and we'd like to be privy to, and I'd certainly like to see Dr. Phil's attorneys be privy to.
John, there's some question whether the documents will be produced. The Kelpo brothers, I assume, will say, we don't have them. They're in the possession of the prosecutor in Aruba. Is that true? Is that the way it's going to be fought at this point?
Well, I believe David Koch, one of the attorneys for the Kelpos, actually signed a declaration that was filed with the court indicating that even if the court ordered that these documents be turned over, they were not going to turn them over, which was sort of I guess, for lack of a better word, arrogant on his part, and the court didn't necessarily like that. But, I can't see them both using the courts as a sword and then as a shield. They can't bring this action. They can't seek damages and then not obey the orders of the court and expect their case to go forward.
All right, so now back us up a little bit. Explain what this lawsuit is about and how your client was once in it and is now out of it.
It's a narrative. The Kelpo brothers claim, or Deepak claims, that when he was interviewed by Jamie Skeeters, who subsequently passed away, that he had said on a tape that he was not involved in Natalee's disappearance. In no way did he engage in any sexual activity with Natalee before disappearance. Deepak claims that subsequently either Dr. Phil's production company or Jamie Skeeters altered the tape to reflect that Deepak had been involved in Natalee's disappearance and did engage in sexual activity with her prior to her disappearance. And therefore they brought a lawsuit claiming libel, defamation, invasion of privacy, and a lot of other claims based on the alleged alteration of the tape.
All right, so that was filed in the state of California by these Aruban residents, or I don't know what their status is in Aruba, but certainly they live there. I don't know what their legal status is. Filed in the state of California, and then you and your clients seized upon the moment to try to get into the litigation so you would get them under oath. Is that right? We
did. Our premise was that they were claiming that the basis of their claim was that it was false by saying that they were involved in Natalee's disappearance. And our claim was that the wrongful death action, the assault and wrongful death action that we brought against Deepak and Satish was based on the same set of salient operative facts that, whether they were involved or not involved in Natalee's disappearance is something that should be litigated by the courts out in California once they've submitted themselves to the jurisdiction.
And then, of course, the court said that your client couldn't bring the action, so you guys got bounced out in June.
We did. Unfortunately, we would have liked to stay in there, but that was the ruling.
But, all right, you'd like to stay in there, but I suspect that even though you got bounced out, it's still a huge victory for you, because I don't know that you are working with the lawyers on Dr. Phil's, because that would enable you to get more information about the investigation, right? Or won't you answer?
I'll answer, of course. I've had a number of conversations with Dr. Phil's attorneys, and yeah, I like to keep them posted, and they like to keep me posted, and yeah, that's an open line there for sure.
All right, so getting really bounced out really wasn't really a loss at all. Your foot's still in the door, so to speak. All
no,
right.
it was a Hail Mary, and we also like to know that we want the Kelpo brothers to know we're watching their every move, and if there's ever even a crack in the door, we're going to seize the opportunity and go after them.
All right, well, stand by, John,
Sure.
because we got the legal panel here. In addition to John, of course, in Utah is former San Francisco Assistant DA Jim Hammer, and here in Washington, defense attorneys Ted Williams and Bernie Grimm. Bernie, how big a deal is this?
It could be a very big deal. I mean, when you file, the Kelpo brothers sort of bit off more than they can chew. When you file a lawsuit, you subject yourself to the jurisdiction of the court, so they can be brought there and ask questions. Did you have sex with Natalee Holloway? Did you kill her? That's not something they want to bring out in any circumstance, certainly not under oath. So, yeah, it could lead to some damning admissions. I think they're in over their heads at this point and are going to try to politely back out of this thing.
And while we're talking, Ted is probably getting dizzy shaking his head no.
Yeah. I have
What are you shaking your head no about?
Because I have to disagree with my brother Bernie Grimm for one. So
and I can see out of the corner of my eye you're doing this.
This is not a big bombshell. First of all, I'm going to give you a big bombshell tonight. That is, this case is not going to go forward. Why? The Kelpo brothers are not going to want to come from Aruba, and they, as Bernie said, avail themselves to this jurisdiction.
So they're going to chicken
simply
out.
meaning that they're going to have to come in here and give a deposition. And I'm going to tell you tonight, the Kelpo brothers are not going to come in and give a deposition.
Isn't that a big sign, though, Ted? If you file a lawsuit in the state, and all of a sudden you realize in the United States, if you file one, all of a sudden you realize, they're going to ask me questions under oath. And if they refuse to do that and drop the lawsuit, isn't that a big sign?
Well, I don't know what. I don't think it's still a big sign, because the bottom line is, wait, we're talking about the discovery that they want to get from this, what Dr. Phil wants to get. Okay, give them the discovery. If that discovery is anything,
they don't want to.
But even if they did,
this.
if it was an admission in there, then this would be a cold indictment against the Aruban police that there was an admission and they didn't go forward with it.
Jim, apparently the Kelpo brothers don't want to turn this over because they actually fought this motion. I mean, if they were so agreeable, they would have said, here, take it.
Well, it's not clear to me whether they actually have the documents. If they have the documents in their possession, you don't get a choice after a judge's order to say, well, you know what, I really don't want to do that. If they've got them, they got to turn over, or this case goes away. If they do have them and they're damaging, they've got the stupidest lawyers or stupidest clients in Aruba to launch a lawsuit like this, because they open the door to what Bernie just talked about.
Does that mean stuck on stupid, to quote the learned counsel to my right?
To quote Professor or Judge or Senator Williams, whoever he is, stuck on
running, Jim. I'm running.
All right. Okay. Well, you mentioned whether they have the documents. John, didn't you say that at least some of the documents have been turned over to the Kelpo brothers' attorneys in the course of the not prosecution, but investigation in Aruba?
Of course, and I think it came out during the hearing before the judge's ruling that David Koch, the Kelpo's lead attorney, had been on the air, I think, 18 different times discussing the documents in his possession and what they indicate or didn't indicate. So yes, they have voluminous documents in their possession right now, and they've been ordered by the court to turn them over.
Well, David's been on our air, and of course, everybody in the media has met David. Bernie, he's a tough lawyer. He's smart. I assume that in this instance, he's not going to cave in if some California court says turn over the documents. He's going to say so. Let me go back to John, and on a serious note. John, what is the status of this investigation? Is it ongoing at all in Aruba?
Apparently it is. I talked to the liaison for the prosecution today, as a matter of fact, and what I've been told is that the Dutch investigative team is back in Holland handling the forensic end of this still. There's an Aruban team actively engaged, either discounting or confirming every lead they have, and that the decision is going to be forthcoming the next couple months whether they can proceed or not with this case with the suspects they have.
You know, John, I love to hear the fact that this could finally get justice for the family, I think, but I can't tell you how many times I've heard that line. It's sort of hard for me to buy it. I mean, I realize you're telling me what others are telling you, but boy, that one's hard. That's hard to stomach.
Greta, if it's hard for you to stomach, just think how Beth and Dave feel, how many times they've had their expectations raised, how many times they've been dashed, and just they don't have any answers right now. So, you know, not to cast a pallor on some of the lively discussion here, but she's still missing. This family doesn't have any answers, and it's really tragic.
I don't know how they hold their fire. It's like, you know, the parents, both Dave and Beth, how they hold their fire throughout this is extraordinary, because I'm not sure that I would, a lot of people would. Anyway, panel, stand by.
Sure.
Coming up.